Welcome back to Right on the Money, the go-to resource for your financial decisions. Now, if you're just joining us today, our guest, Rob Barton, investment advisor representative at Carlson Financial Services in Raleigh, North Carolina. And so, Rob, we've been talking about money and marriage and faith and how important that is.
Yeah.
And my understanding, of course, is that you handle a lot of the investment decisions for Carlson Financial.
Correct.
So let's talk a little bit about investment planning. And that gets so interesting. There are so many choices when it comes to places to put your money.
Yep.
How do you go about making those decisions? And how does it, I'm sorry, I got a double question here. How does it fit in with following our faith?
It's a great double question. I would say the lead-in with that, the initial conversation ties into what we were just mentioning with communication and marriage. Oftentimes, with the married couples that we work with, we get together and in trying to identify what their goals are and what their risk tolerance is and what their time frame is for their investment portfolio, we find that it doesn't actually align with what they're invested in and where they currently stand from an asset standpoint. So a big part of my job is to sit down and actually find out what their time horizon looks like, how much risk they actually want to take on, and then make sure that they're unified, because I've seen this quite a bit where one spouse has a risk tolerance that we'll call it a 7 out of 10, and the other spouse is much more conservative. And so before we move forward with any type of portfolio construction, we've got to get them on the same page.
So you guys are doing triple work here. So you're working with couples as far as having opening communication and making sure everyone's on the same page, just with regular finance. And now you're taking it up a notch to get that communication on with the investment. That's got to be really challenging.
It can be. It's also really rewarding.
So what's the first step in that process then?
Yeah, so from the portfolio management standpoint, we do like to find out what their risk tolerance is and what their time frame is and what their goals are, if it's a 5-year goal or if it's a 15 or 25-year goal. And then we really dive into the technical piece of the portfolio and evaluate the current risk that they're taking on. From a strategic asset allocation standpoint, we evaluate the asset classes that are there and say, maybe you're too heavily weighted in one asset class or one sector or another, and then help to de-risk the portfolio so that we're still getting the rates of return that are still seeking the rates of return that we want to see without taking on the additional risk that we have to.
So how does the conversation go, or where does it go when you have a couple where, like you said, somebody's maybe a 7 out of 10 on how much risk they're willing to take, and the other spouse is more conservative? What do you do? Yeah,
sometimes that's a tough conversation. Other times when we start working through that, we often see that folks really don't understand what a 7 out of 10 means. And so when we're able to show them the risk coefficients for different asset classes, it typically helps to paint a picture to say, oh, that makes sense and I'm comfortable with it. I just didn't realize that I was.
There's got to be a lot of eye-opening that happens in these conversations.
Typically, yeah.
I would imagine so. So we've got to add in another layer. So Carlson Financial, so you're working with folks, couples, young couples, as it relates to marriage, helping them open a line of communication on just day-to-day finance. You're taking the next level and having a conversation on investment class, risk, where is your money at, what kind of returns. But then you take it a whole nother level because of stewardship and your faith. Can you talk about that then?
Correct, yeah. So we move from strategic asset allocation and even tactical asset allocation as well, because we don't want to ignore what's happening in our world and our economy and the international economy and all the other risk associated with either being in international or domestic stocks or asset classes. And so beyond the initial portfolio construction of the what and the when is then helping to align folks, help them align their faith and their values with what they're invested in. And what I've seen a lot of times is there are different investment strategies that people want to choose based on, is it socially responsible, is it environmentally responsible, or even is it morally screened?
Talk a little bit about the screening process. How does that work?
Sure. So obviously from a suitability standpoint, we want to meet with the client and find out what their faith and values are, and what they want to see represented in their portfolio, because they don't want to invest into things they don't support. And so for us, because we have an open architecture, we've got the ability to source socially responsible funds and morally screened funds as well. If someone's faith doesn't align with, say, alcohol or abortion or pornography, then we have the ability to go choose investments that still perform and provide market type returns, but they don't support companies that support those type of vices that say their faith doesn't represent.
The good that Carlson Financial is doing with the opening the communication, but then to be able to really put your money where your mouth is.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I found that folks find a lot of peace in knowing that they can invest into things that best align with their faith.
Well, tell me this. So I know that you do workshops, and you meet with couples that may be a little newer in marriage. Maybe in that what would be the demographic, kind of the?
I would say the young professional, the 25 to 45-year-old range. And I love my single friends and single folks as well, so we do the workshop for them too. But anyone in that age range that's trying to get a good idea of what a financial plan should look like, we want to be able to help them forge that. We want to help them to be able to understand the investment world, what options are available, and then provide a platform where they can make decisions that best align with their goals.
You know, getting started early, how many times do you hear that? If I only would have known.
Quite often.
Yeah, and
quite often.
To be able to provide that, but then to be able to provide something that matches up with their faith and what they believe, and it puts their money into action in the right ways.
Absolutely.
If I wanted to come to a workshop, how do I find out?
Yeah, give us a call at the office or go to our website and click on the events tab and scroll down. You'll be able to click on that, register the event, and see which dates are offered.
Rob, it has been fantastic having you here today. That is our time. But now don't forget, you can watch full Right on the Money episodes on our official YouTube channel or at rightonthemoneyshow.com, where you can get up-to-date financial news and insights from the top insurance and financial professionals in your area. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.